my name is Zhen. I'm an assistant professor at Yale School of Management. So today I'll be talking about a project which is in collaboration with a large school district in California, San Francisco Unified School District. And essentially in this project, what we do is that we help the school district to change their school schedules. That is the start time and end time. And sort of as the title suggests, in this project, we don't just care about coming up with an optimization solution for the school district to help them make better decisions. We are also equally interested in how to sort of really think deeply about the role that policymakers and stakeholders play in this process versus the role that an algorithm plays. And I'll talk a lot more about that. So naturally, this project involves a lot of different parties. So I have my amazing collaborator, Sebastien, who is an assistant professor at Kellogg, and Arthur Delarue, who is an assistant professor at the IE department of the project. And we also had, were very fortunate to work with these amazing staff members from SFUSD. Okay, so a bit context about the school district. San Francisco Unified School District is the 7th largest school district in California, with about 51,000 students and over 100 students. About early 2021, they decided to streamline their start times into 3 tiers. So before that, they have 17 different school start times. And the primary reason why they want to make the change is that they want to save money given their budget prices in the entire school district. And that's when they reached out to the research team of the 3 of us. So you might be wondering, how is school schedule related to the costs? And why do they need a research team to do that? So the primary reason is that the school schedule has a very close relationship with the school transportation. So to give you an idea, think about the process that a school bus comes to pick up the students. So students, they may go to a nearby bus stops, or they may be picked up at the doorstep. The school bus go to pick up the students, and the students have heterogeneous needs, and there are also different types of school buses. So you need to consider all these types of heterogeneity. And once the school bus has picked up enough students, it can do a drop-off. And for the students, this could be the last stop, but for the school bus, this could just be the beginning. Because when you have a large school district with multiple schools that shares the same bus system, if you're able to reuse a school bus multiple times, then this saves you a lot of money, because the school buses are the most expensive part in school district transportation. So in other words, if the school district is able to come up with a balanced school schedule that allows the maximum extent of the reuse of the bus, then this generates savings that they can reinvest into the classroom. And this making this decision involves the school bus routing problem, which is highly non-trivial from an optimization perspective. And that's why they sort of reached out to research team to do it. Okay. On the other hand, if school bus routing and the school scheduling optimization problem is the only challenge, then this issue has been sort of perfectly answered by a previous work, which is done by a team of researchers from MIT back in 2017. They worked with the Boston Public School District to do a similar thing. And these researchers come up with the state-of-the-art optimization algorithm that jointly optimizes school schedule as well as school bus routing problem. And they have a super complicated algorithm that handles all these complexities, such as assigning the pickup spot and the heterogeneity across students. However, their proposed schedule, when it was implemented, this is what happened. So a few days after this new schedule was implemented in Boston, hundreds of parents gathered together and organized the protests against the change. And thousands of parents filed online petitions with the hope that this change can be reverted. Well, this frustration from the parents are understandable, right? If your kids, the school schedule suddenly gets pushed earlier for 2 hours, you got to ask why. Why is this particular school chosen for that change? And how is this decision made? And the super complicated algorithm from the MIT team, even though it performs very well from an optimization perspective, it is highly difficult to interpret. It's very difficult to explain to the stakeholders why the final assignment was like this. And amid huge backlash from parents, the Boston Public School decided to drop this proposal, even though this could potentially save them millions of dollars. And what happened in Boston became a huge inspiration for us when we were collaborating with the San Francisco School District. So from the beginning, we realized that this Boston experience suggests that changing school schedule is not just an optimization problem, but instead this is a highly sensitive policy problem that we need to balance the feedback and objectives from a lot of different stakeholders. So one sort of, if I summarize what is novel in this project, is that we shift our focus away from designing the perfect optimization algorithm to sort of considering the entire process. So we need to include not just the optimization, but also what happens before the optimization. That's how we can help the policymaker come up with the right objective that they want to optimize for, as well as what happens after the optimization. That is how we can sort of represent the final outcome from the algorithm in a meaningful way so that stakeholders understand how this works. And the preview of our contribution, so from a technical perspective, we came up with a more practical optimization formulation for the school scheduling problem, enabling a more transparent decision-making process. And I'll show you precisely what I mean by that. And from the impact perspective, this is the first, as far as we know, this is the first second reform as guided by optimization in a US public school district. So our proposal was implemented by SFUSD in 2021. The new schedule leads to more than $5 million of savings for the school district. And we also collaborated with the school district to run a large-scale survey, and we largely received positive feedback. Okay. And briefly talking about literature, we're related to this literature on school bus routing and school start times. And in particular, we're very close to the Persimmon et al. 2019 paper and Zhen et al.'s 2018 paper. But the main difference is that these papers, they focus on the optimization part, whereas in our setting, we're really trying to design this entire process. So now let me spend a few minutes to talk about the model. Because this is a relatively short talk, I'll try to go, when I get into the details of the model, I may go pretty fast. But I just want to try to illustrate to you the high-level idea of what we're trying to achieve here. So we're formulating this sort of what the Boston team did and a lot of other policy contexts when research team collaborate with policymakers as an iterative modeling approach, where the policymakers and the research team, they're each dedicated for doing a particular thing. So policymakers are dedicated for coming up with the right objective and engage the community. And the research team is dedicated to solve that problem, coming up with an algorithm and also running the algorithm. And there's a lot of issue with this process because it is very time-consuming. It relies highly on the policymakers' ability to clearly define their objective. And there's also potential equity issues because in these type of conversations, those schools with stronger voice tend to dominate the conversation and potentially influence what's the weight of the objectives. So what we propose here instead is what we call an interactive approach. And we try to remove the research team outside of the loop, letting the policymakers directly interact with an interactive tool with about 1,000 solutions. And what do I mean by this 1,000 solutions? So these are the solutions that are relatively good with respect to those objectives that are clearly, explicitly defined by the policymakers. And in the meantime, we leave some wiggle room for the policymakers to actually explore. So in other words, we know from the beginning, or we assume from the beginning that policymakers, they want to explore a little bit, and they want to see the implication of each of their constraints and their objectives. So that is what the interactive tool is for. And in order to achieve that, we need to have sort of an approach to efficiently solve the optimization problem, because we need a large number of near-optimal solutions. We also need a way to systematically generate those near-optimal solutions. And finally, we need to represent the solutions in a meaningful way. So that is the part that we load the solutions into the interface. Okay? And in today's talk, because I really want to show you guys how the tool looks like, I'll be relatively fast in here, but our paper is online, so you can get all the details in the paper. But in terms of the optimization problem, it's an assignment problem. So we're trying to assign each school in the district to one of the start time tiers. And this is what was requested by the school district. So it's either 750, 840, or 930. And our decision is which school should be assigned to which tiers. There are a number of constraints. It could be individual school has some constraints depending on whether they're middle school, high school, or elementary school. There could be pairwise constraints. These are all relatively easy to handle. And in terms of the objectives, there are two objectives that were mainly considered by the school district that is like clearly defined and explicitly stated. The first one is minimizing transportation costs, which I'll talk about in the next slide. And then the second one is minimizing the change compared with their pre-COVID schedule. So this is not linear, but we could relatively easily linearize it with auxiliary Delarue. So this is how the problem looks like. The main challenge is the transportation part, which is typically pretty time-consuming to solve. So the first simplification we make for this problem is that we use a proxy of minimizing the total number of buses as a proxy for minimizing transportation costs. And this is also like a typical approach that is used in the literature. And then based on that proxy, the first route that we can take is to explicitly solve the vehicle routing problems. But it proves to be intractable for our setting because we need to generate those large number of near-optimal solutions. So instead, what we did is that we tried to optimize over a lower bound of the number of buses. It turns out to be a reasonably good simplification, where we try to minimize over the maximum number of buses that's running on road throughout the day. So what do I mean by that? This is the distribution of the number of buses running on road throughout the day, given the pre-change schedule. Okay, so you can see that there is a peak in the afternoon, leading to a bottleneck about 153 buses. So that's approximately the number of buses needed to serve all the students in a school district before our proposal. So if you solve the problem based on the optimization that we came up with, this is how sort of its effect. So you see that the peak shifts to AM. Now we have three aligned peaks at 128 buses. And this is approximately 27 buses reduction compared to this. So that gives you an idea of how the algorithm works. And then the next step is to generate diverse near-optimal solutions, leveraging this very fast optimization model. The high-level idea is that we want to first define a set of solutions that are reasonably good. So I was talking about being reasonably good. What do I mean precisely? So the policymakers, we can first solve the policymakers' explicit objective and come up with the minimum cost with respect to those objectives. And then we can define this set. So gamma controls the wiggle room that the policymakers would want. They have a gamma of 0. It means that the policymakers don't want any wiggle room. Just give me the best solution possible with respect to those explicitly stated objectives. The larger gamma is, it means the more that the policymakers are willing to sort of sacrifice the optimality of the solution with a more diverse set of solutions for exploration. And then we can run this projection problem to generate many different solutions. I'm a bit running out of time, so I'm gonna rush a bit, but I want to show you the final interact tool that we did with the school district. So this is implemented on a school on a Google spreadsheet, because this is a tool that is free and that was already used by the school district. So this is how the tool works. We load 1,000 near optimal solutions, and we by default recommend the solution. So that is under proposed. The solution that performs the best with respect to the two explicitly stated objective, that is the number of buses and the average change. And below that, this is the list of schools. There are about 140 schools, and these are just some like additional information. These are their start and end times before the change. And this part is the more interesting part. This is the lever that the policymaker can play with. So let's say I'm a policymaker at Alamo Elementary, and I don't want my school to start at 8:40. So what I can do is that I can uncheck 8:40. It's not influencing anything because in this optimal assignment, the proposed is 7:50, so that is fine. But if I click 7:50, then you will see that actually the solution updates quite a bit, and it's not just for Alamo, but actually for quite many number of schools. Let me just do this again. Here is a map that illustrates the distribution of the start times. So this type of view really, you see like the different assignment for the other school. For the other schools, when we just simply uncheck the 750 blocks for one school. This really illustrates the ripple effect that in imposing the constraint for one school would have on the entire district. And in these policy negotiations, it's really helpful to illustrate such ripple effects, which can save the schools from their own tunnel vision, where they only care about what happens in their particular school. I'm running out of time, so let me.
You're out of time.
I'm sorry.
You're out of time.
Ah, okay, yes.
Because we need to move to the next.
Yeah, of course. All right, so I'm very happy to talk more about this offline, and thanks for being at my talk.